Okay, so we're live on Twitter and YouTube, and we're going live on Facebook in just a second. Good morning, everybody. This is Steve Saplodowski, publisher of BayiBuzz.com. It's Friday morning, and it's Rob Maness time, and we're going to be talking about local Louisiana and U.S. politics with the Colonel. Good morning, Colonel Rob Maness. How you doing today?
I'm doing fine, Steve. How are you?
I'm doing fine, thank you so much. So lot's been going on. Let's, if you don't mind, let's just touch upon some of the state issues. Have you seen anything that you want to talk about?
Well, I noticed that the Unanimous Juries Coalition has been active the last few days. They've been out and about. Mr. Ed Tarpley, former district attorney from up in the Pineville, Alexandria area, he is the face of that movement, and we are spreading around the state. I'm proud to be one of the surrogates for the movement and proud to be part of the team that's going to remove the last vestiges of Jim Crow era law from the state of Louisiana and move the entire country forward, as a matter of fact.
Good, good. Thank you so much. And so the vice president was in town.
Yeah, Vice President was in town last night down in the World War II museum, and we are expecting there was about $1.2 million worth of fundraising done for the midterm elections on behalf of Steve Scalise, as you know, who is the majority whip for the Republican Party in the House of Representatives and all of the congressional delegation. Of course, most of those dollars will be spent in targeted races where there are really viable challengers or risk of a seat going to a Democrat that should be a Republican.
So, are there any viable challenges that you know
Not here in the Congressional District
of? Right.
1, from what I've seen. Mr. Scalise is firmly for want of a better term, entrenched in that seat. And I don't see that any of the challengers that I've read about will be up to being able to take that seat from him, especially the Democrat.
Sure, sure. So I read a poll the other day, last week I think it was, that said that that Steve Scalise was the favored candidate or the favored person to be the next speaker on the Republican side. Did you see a poll?
I did see that poll, but I don't put much stock in it, as he himself has said, Steve, that he's not running for anything right now. He's focused on keeping the majority in the House of Representatives for the midterm elections. He's traveling around the country helping raise funds. He's very popular in the fundraising side of it. I mean, every donor whose name that I'm aware of, large donor on the Republican and some that give the Democrats also, because as you know, donors give to both sides quite often. Were either in attendance or part of the host committee, which is a key position to have at a fundraiser last night when the vice president was in town. So I think they're on the fundraising side. That's what Scalise is most focused on.
How much were the tickets?
You know, I'm not specifically aware of what the tickets were, but I can tell you that if they raised $1.2 million, and there were probably 50 to 100 people at the event at the most, and that's quite a bit of money.
Okay, so it's like 20,000.
Yeah, a lot of money.
Wow, wow. I mean, that's absolutely amazing. If my numbers are correct.
Yeah, and that's just an educated guess.
Yeah, yeah. I could be 100% off. Or so, give or take 100%. So,
well, Scalise is very popular amongst Republican donors, and so is the vice president, for that matter. So I'm not surprised at all that they had a great success.
Sure, sure.
The other piece of
Yeah,
Louisiana news,
please.
unfortunately, I have to say it because it is Louisiana political news, but I'm involved in it. So there's
Okay.
a disclaimer here that I'm not being objective on this one. the Republican Liberty Caucus Louisiana charter has been reactivated, and yours truly was elected chairman of the state charter. And about a week ago, I think the Hayride did a news article on it last night or this morning or something, and I'm honored to be asked to lead that. I've been endorsed by the National Republican Liberty Caucus twice, and Senator Rand Paul, and folks like that that are on the Liberty side of the Republican Party. And we hope to be reaching out and working with the Louisiana GOP to reach out and maybe energize some of the younger, more liberty-minded voters to come join the party and have a place to call home in the Republican Party, and help hold our Republican elected officials accountable to small government, lower taxes, and prosperous business climates.
So what exactly is the Republican Liberty Party? I mean, is it like
it's not a party? It's a caucus.
Okay, so it's like the Freedom Caucus?
No, it's a national organization. Some states have active charters like ours has just become, but its principles are to help recruit and get elected Republican candidates that actually will fight for the principles that they run on, which are liberty principles, limited government, lower taxes, a positive business climate, protecting our freedoms, such as our Fourth Amendment freedoms, our freedom of speech, making sure that Congress and the president and the judicial system are working within the confines of the Constitution and honoring things like the 10th Amendment, which is why it's important for the state to have its own charter, because we'll be focused at the state level when it comes to candidates and down to the local level and recruiting candidates that actually not only will run on those principles, but will govern by them once they're in office.
Okay, and who actually founded it?
I'm not sure who founded it. It was founded at the national level in order to help the Republican Party. Again, you don't have to be a Republican to join. We invite all comers. You can go to rlc.org and join. Just make sure you put the state of Louisiana in for the state when you do sign up. It is a paid membership, $30 a year for a student, I think, and veterans and senior citizens. And $45 a year for the rest. But the organization is designed to, again, find candidates that will actually govern based on the principles that they run on. And as you know, I'm sure Republican candidates are very successful at getting elected on those principles. And we want to make sure that we're helping the Republican Party and Republican elected officials stick to our principles.
Okay, so those people who are watching, please go ahead and share. Please go ahead and like the program if indeed you like it. Hopefully you do. We're going to be talking about some national politics in a few seconds. So go ahead, and if you have any questions, don't forget, post your questions, post your comments. We want to read them. And so we see, I see that Scott Plouffe likes our video. Scott has a publication that focuses, he's actually a quote, progressive publication in New Orleans. Scott, if you put the publication down in the notation, I'll be more than happy to mention it. And in fact, Scott, give me a call later, or let's talk today. Let's see. Anything that you see on your side that you want to mention?
See, probably a distant relative, Donald Maness, saying good morning, and Cindy Caldwell is watching on my @Colonel Rob Maness page, and we're happy to have you all. Thank you for joining us this morning as we discuss Louisiana and national political issues.
Absolutely. So I'm looking at that page right now, I'll tell you the truth. So, any more state issues that you would like to discuss?
Well, I haven't heard much about the Secretary of State's race this morning. Not sure if you have, but our Republican Liberty Caucus is going to be assessing all of those candidates and the candidates for special elections, like in House District 90 over here in Slidell and those kind of things. So we'll be assessing those candidates and reaching out to the ones that we think will support our principles and conducting some surveys with them to see if we want to support them. So that's how we'll be active in those races, and we'll continue to further assess those candidates as they move along. It's a very short race in all of these cases, so they're out busy and doing a lot of things. Haven't heard much on that trail this week, though. Have you?
No, I really have not. I think after Labor Day, I think the elections will begin to pick up some steam. But
Yeah.
until then, it's people are still involved with getting the kids to school, coming back from vacation. They're just not focused, and I don't perceive it to be a really emotional election. Secretary of State, many people feel like it's not relevant. Although today, day and age with the issue of the invasions of foreign interests, it's become more and more relevant. Your take?
Oh, absolutely. And each of the candidates, from what I've seen, is focused on, as part of their platform, on the security of our elections. Unfortunately for the Democrat Party, they had a fake attempt that they said was real from the Russians at the DNC level at this past week, and got a little bit embarrassed by that. But you know what? As those of us that are familiar and on the professional and operational side of intelligence and cyber operations and other military style operations and planning, it's an extremely difficult environment in the cyber environment and the communications environment and intelligence environment to see to be able to identify who adversaries are, where things are coming from, where they may be hosted at, as opposed to where they're coming from, and then identify the adversary themselves. It's much easier to identify the action that the adversary is attempting to take on you, and safeguard against being able to see those before they have any negative impact on your systems. And apparently the DNC's test was good. It's just that they misidentified their operational test as a Russian attempt to hack their systems. So we'll keep an eye on that and the Secretary of State's race, and be watching for what those folks are saying about that particular issue.
Okay, we have Lynn Matthews who says good morning, and Bethany Williams says hello. And ladies, please, if you can, go ahead and share so that your followers will know that the program is live. And if you have any comments, please go ahead and make the comments, ask any questions. Love to hear from you. So, the big story nationally, what is it?
Well, it's been another week in Trump land, Steve. As you know, we have some fun here because most of the time we're on opposite sides on a lot of these issues. The biggest one, I think, was as far as the mainstream media goes, was their howling and cheering and jeering and clapping and catcalling, whistling that they were doing with Paul Manafort, who was President Trump's campaign manager for just about 44 days, by the way, a very short period of time in any campaign's lifetime from a campaign manager's perspective, when he was convicted of 8 out of 18 counts of unrelated federal charges, mostly related to finance fraud and tax fraud and those kind of things this past week. And then on the same day, within about 5 minutes of each other, President Trump's former, former personal attorney, Michael Cohen, pled guilty. And in his guilty plea, now this is not in the documents. If you go read the documents of the guilty plea, the letter that Mr. Cohen and his attorneys submitted for the plea did not state this part. This was done verbally by Cohen in the courtroom. That the two things that caught the media's attention and then a lot of people are howling about, and I'll get to the reasons why they really shouldn't be here in a second, but were two of the charges that he pled guilty to were he actually pled guilty to crimes on the campaign finance side that actually aren't crimes, and then he implicated a federal presidential candidate, I believe, that who directed him to take those actions. So that's only in the transcript of the courtroom session itself. It's not in the actual plea deal, which is significant, I think, in the legal world. I'm not a prosecutor or an attorney, but I have been watching a lot of them on television here lately, real ones on media, those kind of things. And, according to Alan Dershowitz, Harvard law professor, who's about the most objective public
come on.
pundit
Oh, God.
that there is today.
Please.
And then, of course, Mark Levin, who was opposed to Trump at the beginning. Both of them have said, and they're attorneys, and Levin has actually been in a Republican Department of Justice
right.
under the Reagan administration and has vast experience in these matters, said that Mr. Trump is not implicated in Cohen's plea. He is, but that is aside from the fact that these issues are not crimes in the first place. Look, I've raised millions of dollars in political campaigns at the federal level in the last 5 years, and I can tell you that what was done, if what was done is what we know was done based on Cohen's plea deal and what I suspected already, is that the guy paid off a couple of ladies to keep them quiet, and the way they did it was perfectly legal. They didn't use campaign funds, used personal funds, and as you know, a candidate for office at any level can put as much money as they want to into their campaign. So even if it's considered a campaign contribution, Mr. Trump paid the dollars, and that there you have it. So
well, hold on.
I would say I'm going to let you talk in just a second, Steve.
Sure.
I would say from my perspective, I think he's in the clear. There's nothing impeachable in there. He hasn't committed any crimes, and at a minimum, he's met the Bill Clinton standard of character.
Okay. Why did he put the did he put the O in the Oval Office like Bill Clinton?
Well, no, I would point that out that Mr. Trump's sideline relationships were all before coming in office, and he didn't put the power of the most powerful office in the land against a 20-something-year-old intern who worked directly for him, which is a crime, by the way.
So there's a little thing called reporting, and if you make a campaign contribution, it needs to be reported. Especially, go ahead.
The question is, it's not a campaign contribution. I've read the details of the activity, and it's nothing more than Mr. Trump paying these ladies off to be quiet, and it really is not. It can't be considered a campaign contribution, and even if it were, it wouldn't be illegal. And the most that he should get out of it would be a fine for reporting it late because he didn't know he needed to report it. And if his people go in and do the report now, if the FEC determines that it is a campaign contribution, then the most that he'll get is a fine. But if they report it accurately, because now if the FEC rules that it is a contribution within the appropriate amount of time, you won't even get a fine. That's how it works.
I don't think I agree with you on that. Yes, there is a possibility that it could be a civil penalty. And depending upon the facts, which we don't know yet, there's a possibility that it won't be, that it'll be a criminal penalty. He definitely would need to report. The issue is whether or not it's a crime. I would say that trying to pay off two women who are making allegations or about to make allegations, who are reported to make allegations, and to do that 12 days in terms of one before the election. I don't know. I think that we'll see some documents. I think that we're going to see documents. I don't think that that Cohen would have made this statement under oath without verifications of documents, just like with the Manafort situation. I don't think that they would have put the testimony of Rick Gates unless they really felt like they had some documentation. Federal court is not like state court. Federal court, you want almost like a 90 to 95% certainty before you indict.
Oh, absolutely. And the conviction rate is in the low 90s, like 92 or 93% rate. That's why Manafort being convicted on those 8 instead of the 18 just shows you that they didn't have that good a documentation. Now, the next trial, they have 3 times as many documents to put in as evidence. So it'll probably go better for the prosecution, in my mind, unless there's something that we don't know about on the defense side. Manafort was convicted. 5 of those 8 were tax form. I don't know. They said that he filed false tax forms. That's documentation issues and those kind of things. It's not a difficult thing to do. That's why every American citizen is deathly afraid of getting an IRS audit. But they did get him on some bank fraud and those kind of things for not reporting. And you know what? He's guilty. He's guilty. Now, you mentioned facts. Now, the media is reporting Cohen's statements as fact. At least the propaganda media is, that wants the president to be impeached and any number of other things, along with the 64 million, and wants to insult daily the 64 million voters that voted for this president of the United States. Those aren't really facts. It's just hearsay. It's he said, and that's what it is. I don't think that they've got any documentation. If they did, they would have indictments or subpoenas in the works, and they don't have any of that. They would have indictments in the works. It's just like for the Russia collusion thing. If the issue with the Don Trump Jr. meeting was considered to be illegal, I think there would have been an indictment come down against Don Trump Jr., Manafort, and Jared Kushner, who were all in that meeting, and at a minimum, Don Trump Jr., if they had enough documentation to prove their case in court. And again, there's no evidence of collusion. It's now 8:32 a.m. on August 24th, and there's still no evidence of Russia collusion, which is why Robert Mueller was appointed to investigate.
Well, Rob, again, I think that, saying the word no evidence, I think that that's just unfair. I mean, for a lot of different reasons. Is there say, criminal proof of collusion? No. Is there evidence of collusion? Absolutely. So, we're not at that point yet where where we, again, we've talked about this before. I don't think we're at the point where we can even come close to conclusively say that there is or there is no collusion, because we just don't know what they have. You're blaming the media for, the propaganda media, I think, as you said, for making a conclusion, but by saying that there is no collusion, you're drawing a conclusion that's really based upon hypothetical and nothing more. And I'm not blaming you, because I do the same thing. Okay, I'm just saying that I think we can't say it. I think that.
Well, sure.
Yeah.
Well, sure.
Okay.
We can say it on the side. And look, I'm not a Donald Trump fan. I've never been a Donald Trump fan, but I did vote for him in the general election, and I like his policies, and he's doing a hell of a lot better job than Hillary Clinton would have been doing, quite frankly, or Jeb Bush, or any of the other 17 people that the man trounced, because the American people are tired of the elites in the media, the elites inside the Beltway, trying to say what's good for our country, when that's not their role in this country. It's our role to elect people that think like us, that will actually represent us, and that's what created Donald Trump. And the media, 90% of it is a propaganda arm of now the Democrat Party, the elite, political elite inside the Beltway. And I guarantee you there are Republicans behind a lot of this stuff that attacks Donald Trump. And I'm not talking about never Trump Republicans. I'm talking about people in office that have leadership roles. I guarantee you that there are Republicans behind some of these things too, because what I call the uniparty, the folks in power in the political parties and all of their consultant class who makes hundreds of millions of dollars every year on these campaigns and elections, they don't like Donald Trump. They want to get him out as soon as possible. And it appears that some of the bureaucracy is helping them do it because they've been given the tools to do it through less than honorable and above board means, such as the fake Steele dossier, which Lanny Davis, who is Michael Cohen's attorney, actually said on CNN yesterday that all of the things said about Cohen in the Steele dossier are false. You notice that there's not been much the people pushing that dossier haven't been doing it much in the last 40. That Lanny Davis has also said that Mr. Cohen has no idea whether Trump knew about the Don Trump Jr. meeting with the Russian attorney who didn't turn out to be a government person that wanted to talk about the Magnitsky Act, not some opposition research on Hillary Clinton. So it was a nothing burger outcome.
Well, that's what outcome. Outcome. You're right.
It was a nothing burger outcome. And it's a nothing burger input because it's not illegal. It's not against the law to meet with any entity that has potential opposition information.
I disagree.
Opposition.
I disagree.
It's not in the law. It's not a conspiracy. It doesn't meet the test.
Sure does. Sure.
Not for one meeting. Not for one meeting. Steve, you're an attorney.
Exactly.
Test for under the law. It doesn't. I've done my research too. It just doesn't meet that test. If it did, Mueller would have indicted long ago because he has nothing. He has nothing. He has nothing.
Okay.
And that is the way this is going to go down. They're going to go down this trail to try to get Donald Trump for his mistresses when the Democrats didn't get, and the media didn't get Bill Clinton for his crime against a direct subordinate young woman while in office. Well, they certainly aren't going to be able to get President Trump on that issue when it comes to impeachment, because that's all Mueller can do is send a letter to the Congress. Most important thing on Trump's side is for him to get control of his party and get those people that need to stay in office and get in office in this midterm election to happen.
Okay, let me just make myself clear, and that is that I'm not saying that the Don Jr. meeting was absolutely conspiracy. What I am saying is that I think the law is real clear in terms of the acts that are requisite in order to conspire, in my opinion, was met. The issue is whether or not the contribution that was being made by the Russian government, whether or not it constitutes a thing of value under the law. So that's, I just want to make myself clear about it. We talked about that before last week, so I think we can, no reason to bring, to debate the nuances. We'll have to wait and see. I don't think it's conclusive.
I would have said that if that meets the level of conspiracy, then the Clinton campaign and the Democrat National Committee, through their attorneys, hired Steele, who hired Russians to build that Steele dossier, and conspired with sitting officials, the number 4 official in the Department of Justice, both before he was fired for lying and talking to the media and lying about it, and afterwards. That conspiracy is much more evident than any other conspiracy on the Trump campaign side. So if you got to take one, you got to take the other.
You have to look.
There's much more. There's actually direct evidence of that conspiracy.
I think, well, there's certainly direct evidence on the other side, but let me just say this again. There's, I think, a major difference between the Clinton campaign and the DNC hiring a law firm who hires an agency who hires, in this case, Steele. Okay, and Steele has a run in terms of what he can do. He's being paid for his service. He's also being provided access to money so he can buy information. And the only place to get the information would be in terms of Trump's involvement in Russia, such as his building or trying to build Trump Tower in the middle of a campaign, a presidential campaign, is to go to Russia and to find out what they have about Donald Trump. And
facts show that Mr. Steele didn't go to Russia. He used
no. When I say go to Russia, I mean you go to the Russia. What I'm saying is,
I think he actually talked to some Russian that's here in the United States now, and that was where they made up the information, which is still unverified, uncorroborated, and actually ridiculous that we even are having a discussion about it, other than the fact that of the conspiracy of folks in and out of the government to conspire with Steele, who is also a foreign agent, whether retired or not, is still a foreign agent. Whether he's a Russian or not, he is still a foreign agent, and that conspiracy is much more evident than anything on the side that you are on this, Steve. There is troves of evidence, direct, documented evidence and witnesses that prove that one, and nobody's even looking at it. I hope that Mr. Mueller is looking at it, and we really don't know what he's got. Because he could get a conviction there on somebody.
Okay. Again, we both agree that everything should be looked at. Okay, everything on both sides. So we're in agreement. I'm just saying I think there's a major difference between the Russian government saying, "Hey, we want to help your dad's campaign," and accepting the meeting under that premise. And yeah, so it doesn't turn out like that in terms of the information that was promised. But the conspiracy was the intent, and then whether or not the information is in my opinion, whether it's covered under the statute. Well, let me ask you this: do you have any pause at all that Donald Trump once says, and I'm paraphrasing, wants to get rid of flipping? I mean, do you have any issues at all? I mean, we ought to let say Nagin back in, and take, release him from jail, and maybe 50-80% of those people who are in federal prison for white collar crimes because Donald Trump doesn't like the idea he's being pinched.
It gives it should give everybody pause. It should give everybody pause. Again, this is not a man who is an ideologue, which is why you have ever-Trumper Republicans. You have Republicans like me who are watching the policies and trying to to weather the storm of the other crap that's happening. And then you have the complete. I think somebody called it Colt 45 the other day is what I heard, where there's no question whatsoever. But anything that has to do with the Constitution, the judicial system, we all have to look at carefully. Look, he is bowing to the Republican establishment on occasion. He just came out and endorsed Cynthia Hines Smith, who was a former Democrat, flipped to Republican, and got appointed to a Senate seat in Mississippi, where he's got a fantastic Liberty Republican in Chris McDaniel, State Senator Chris McDaniel, running over there, that almost won before, and feels that election was really stolen from him when he defeated Thad Cochran and then lost in the runoff. So we know by those types of actions that he's listening to the Republican establishment leadership that's in positions, like the McConnells and those kind of folks up there. Folks like me who want to see more outsiders, non-career politicians elected, and non-Beltway insiders elected so that we can get more truth out and take more action and actually reduce government like the Republican Party says it stands for, instead of continuing to grow it like it does. We have great concerns about that. One issue came up yesterday in the latest appropriations bill to come up. It funds Planned Parenthood again. Well, every congressman in the Republican Party and every senator in the Republican Party, the last 3 elections have run on defunding Planned Parenthood from federal funds, which they should do. Senator Rand Paul had to get up in the middle of the Senate and basically shame the Republican leadership into voting for his amendment, in allowing a vote on his amendment, which would defund Planned Parenthood on that. And guess what? They did allow a vote, and when they did allow a vote, 2 Republicans kept it from being passed, and that is atrocious. And that's the kind of thing that will lose the Republican Party control of the House, because a lot of people look at stuff like that and then they tell their family who isn't that well informed on these kind of things that they're going to vote so and so because of this or that, and then the next thing you know, they've lost control of the House. And if they want to keep control of the House, they better do like Congressman Jim Jordan from Ohio says, do what we said we were going to do. And when they get that opportunity, they better do it, and they haven't so far.
Okay, let's look at some of the comments real quick. Connie Zimmerman says, actually asked a question, is it illegal to pay someone who is extorting you?
I'm sorry, Steve, you broke off.
Okay.
Illegal to pay someone for what?
Okay, Connie Zimmerman is asking a question. She asks, is it illegal to pay someone who is extorting you? So, she's referring, I think, to, of course, at the very minimums, Stormy Daniels, and probably Karen McDougal, assuming that those are the facts. You want to take a crack at it? I'll give my opinion in a second.
Well, from a non-attorney's perspective, if I'm a very wealthy person in the public eye, and these things happen all the time, this is common, Connie, I would say that it's not against the law for me to come to an agreement with an individual like that and for monetary resources to exchange hands. There's no law that I'm aware of that prohibits you from doing that. It's more about, like Steve and I have been talking about, the circumstances around it that are debatable at this point on whether it violates any type of, in this case, campaign laws especially. But again, most campaign law violations are dealt with by fines. The Obama administration had over $375,000 in fines from taking, I think, around $1.8 million of illegal donations. And you can go on down the list, both on the Republican and Democrat sides.
In fact, the Trump campaign actually was hit with a fine too. So
that wouldn't surprise me.
Yeah. But that's different than say an individual. That's totally different. In fact, what Trump is alleged to have done is exactly the same thing that John Edwards was allegedly done. The difference is that the facts related to the Trump are a lot tighter than the facts related to John Edwards, in which he was acquitted. Getting to Connie's question, let me just say that I do believe that they were probably extorting. Okay, I mean that's what I think. I think what happened though is that instead of Donald Trump, contacting the FBI and saying, "Hey, these ladies are extorting me," he felt like he couldn't do that because then he'd be exposed, and so he put himself in his own box. And I think in many respects, the fact that he didn't report this to the FBI is, in a sense, evidence that will be used against him. So, we'll have to see. And why is that important evidence? In my opinion, because it shows that it was a campaign contribution. This was occurring right at the time of the campaign and posted John Edwards, where the money was, the whole transaction took long before, I think a year before. So, anyway, your thoughts, Rob? We have about 5 more minutes max. Yeah.
Just a point of correction: Edwards was not acquitted. The trial ended up in a hung jury. There were 5 counts, and the federal government never went back to try any of the 5 counts, which says something about the decision to go ahead and leave it as a mistrial. And that's because it really wasn't a campaign contribution. He didn't use campaign funds. A candidate, once again, can put as much money into a campaign as he wants to. If this turns out to have been a campaign violation, it's the remedy. The most common remedy really is to file it and then pay a fine of some sort. And considering that this is a fairly low amount, that fine probably would be fairly minimal if there was a fine even.
Yeah,
well, it is what it is when it comes to that. Now, if Cohen had made the payment and Trump had not used his own money to do that, then you have a much better standing to get a decision. But it would be by Cohen, who has pled guilty, who has pled guilty to that and pled guilty to causing a corporate violation, which, as I don't know if you know or aware of this, but Mr. Pecker, David Pecker of the National Enquirer, was given immunity for the Cohen case. So,
right.
That corporate violation is about the National Enquirer's corporate buying of the McDougal story and then holding it in their archives and not publishing it. So it is what it is when it comes to that. We'll have to see, but again, the facts don't show that Mr. Trump did that. The facts show that he paid it out of his own money. It's no different than going and buying a new suit to make yourself look better if you're in a campaign. And the other part of the
wait.
Part of the test that it's no different.
No.
He wants to make himself look great, his best for his campaign, so he doesn't want this stuff to come out.
So you pay off.
That's perfectly legal. If the candidate is paying that money, it's perfectly legal and it's not a campaign contribution. Look, the attorneys are against you on this one, Steve. The guys that are experts on the FEC. Even the former FEC chairman, Bradley Smith, wrote an op-ed that was published in the Washington Post yesterday that said it's not a crime. It's terrible. It's unseemly. Doesn't reach the level of the Bill Clinton crime against his intern, the sexual harassment, assault, and relationship using the power of the most powerful office in the land. But it is terrible. It's unseemly. But we all knew that before we had to vote for the guy.
Wait. Hold. See,
if I didn't walk away from him on the bus audio tape, what do they call that tape? The one on the bus with the Bush guy. If I didn't walk away from him on that before he was elected, I'm not going to walk away from him on anything else that's come out of this. So more will come out on it in the future, but the facts so far don't show that it's anything. It's a nothing burger as far as Trump's concerned.
So everything is a nothing burger. I mean, everything he's involved in, these charges in terms of not Rob Maness, hopefully. But I mean,
I quoted a lot of sources on here.
Manafort, yes, yeah.
It's an opinion show, but I do try to use sources when I can.
But I mean, all these things: Manafort, Don Jr., the two ladies who were paid off.
With Don Jr.
Well, yeah, but what I'm saying is that there are allegations and facts that need to be considered in relationship to all of these issues. And but what I'm hearing you say is that they're all BS. They're all nothing burgers. I mean, it's just people trying to bring Trump down.
Again, you have to look at it in the context of the times we live in, and Bill Clinton and John Edwards are the two gentlemen that have gotten off scot-free pretty much, other than Clinton was impeached and then acquitted by the Senate when they knew that he committed a crime. There isn't any of that fact that's available that shows we know he committed a crime. Now, if that comes out, that'll change the story, and that'll change the evidence and change the game. But I bet it doesn't change Trump supporters and whether they'll vote for the guy. But it will probably hurt him in the Congress. And you know what? If he ends up with a Democrat House, he'll probably end up getting more legislation passed for his agenda because he used to be a Democrat and he has relationships with a lot more of those people than he does with Republicans. So
Interesting.
And it'll probably be legislation that I don't like in those cases. And we'll be having this discussion a year from now on the different sides.
Right. Yeah. Again, my beef with Donald Trump is less on policy as it is in terms of him individual, and it's more in terms of his behavior. Okay, I find much of his behavior, his tweets, his statement like he made yesterday, trying to overturn the whole concept of flipping is just an insult to the Justice Department, and I mean,
Yeah.
would turn the criminal justice into a zoo. I mean, that'd be horrible, and he's doing that to protect himself. I just have a real problem with that. So, one last thing, and let's leave this with a positive note in terms of Donald Trump. Okay, let's find something that you and I both can agree upon. Go ahead.
Well, he hasn't fired Jeff Sessions, and I don't think he's going to. And I think the tweets, which may seem the opposite to you, that we saw, I think it was yesterday or the day before yesterday.
It was yesterday, yeah.
And Sessions' response publicly are proof of that. And I don't agree with all of the recusal that General Sessions has taken on this issue, but he is the ethical person that's needed at this point in time for this country in the Department of Justice, because as you can see, I mean, there's mounting stacks of documents and evidence that people, from my perspective and point of view, think is active evidence of conspiracy of some sort to keep Donald Trump from getting elected first, and then to get him out of office as quickly as possible afterwards. And having Sessions there gives me comfort, and I don't think the president's gonna fire him, and I think that's a positive thing.
I think, quite frankly, I believe that what Sessions did yesterday and what he has done before, when he's made comments about not being under political influence, and certainly Rosenstein said the same thing, that's evidence that can be used against Donald Trump in terms of obstruction of government. So we'll have to wait and see. I wanted to leave this on a positive note for Donald Trump, so you got to help me with this.
Well, he gave the Medal of Honor to the first Air Force Airman. They presented it to his family, Technical Sergeant John Chapman, day before yesterday, first Air Force Airman to receive the Medal of Honor since the Vietnam War.
Really?
He presented that, and I really like, as with all presidents, he's not stepping away from those kind of things. And when he talks about them, I think you see the real person come through. The people that are close to him say this all the time. Not me. I've been on the receiving end of Trumpism. So as far as personal attack,
yeah.
But other people that are close to him that I've talked to and heard and watched and listened to, the warmth of his heart and those kind of things, especially for kids and families. And that's one of the things I think that is a positive. And I wish that, and I know the Never Trumpers do too, wish he would focus more on that kind of stuff in his tweets and those kind of things than he does some of these other things. But he is what he is. And we're going to have to get through this as a country and as citizens.
Yeah. Okay, I'll buy that in terms of the award. Certainly I think that the more he can do, with that, in showing positive things with the tweet. Obviously, no question about it. Tweet, with millions of followers. I mean, it could be a very powerful, positive influence. And so let's encourage him to do that. So, okay, listen, thank you so much. So what I'm going to do, and those people who are watching, please go ahead and share. Please go ahead and share and like. And we'll be putting up some of this on Bayou Buzz, and we'll also put up a replay of this. And listen, Rob, thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and turn off my streaming right